Hi everybody, today in the kitchen I am making some tomato powder from tomato skins. Now we got these tomato skins from some tomatoes that we had harvested in the garden and I was using to make diced tomatoes in my pressure canner. So first step was that I got them out of the freezer and here they are here all on the bench. I put them into the pot on the stove and just on a very low heat because you don't want to burn the bottom. So I put them into the pot, put the heat on a nice low setting, and I had to keep giving them a mix every minute or so as they slowly started defrosting. This took quite a while, as if you've dealt with frozen tomatoes before, you will know that they are as hard as a rock when they are frozen. So once they started defrosting, that's when I could start removing the skins. Now you can see here that some of them weren't quite defrosted enough, so it was a little bit difficult taking the skins off. However, once they were nice and soft, the skins slipped off really easily. So it was a quick process once they were defrosted. But the important thing is not to rush it and be impatient. Otherwise, you can have a bit of difficulty getting the skins off. As you can see right here with this tomato, it did take a few tries to get all of the skin off. Throughout this process, you'll have tomatoes that defrost quicker than other ones. So it's important to keep giving it a mix through every now and then, just to ensure that you can rotate the tomatoes that are on the top, put them onto the bottom, so you can try and get them defrosting as evenly as possible. But I can guarantee that they're going to defrost all at different rates, and that's okay, just as long as you keep giving it a mix to make sure none of the tomatoes sitting on the bottom are going to get burnt. Once I had completed about half of the tomatoes in the pot, I decided to refill the pot and top it back up. Now, these tomatoes I had been sitting in the sink with some warm water, so they weren't totally frozen. As you can tell here, they were already slightly defrosted, which was okay because I was putting them in the pot with the other tomatoes that were slightly defrosted anyway. So I continued to give this a mix and rotate the tomatoes from the bottom to the top and vice versa. And when they had started defrosting, I continued removing the skins. Now, it is a good idea to have a separate pot while you are doing this process. So the tomatoes that have had their skins removed, you can place into the new pot. You can put the skins into the bowl. It makes the whole process a little bit easier and definitely a lot quicker when you don't have to constantly fumble for the peeled tomatoes in the big pot already. As you can see here, I am having a little bit of difficulty getting the skin off this particular tomato. And like I said earlier, if the tomato isn't totally defrosted, the skin is not going to slip off very easily. So it's really important to try not to be impatient and rush the process, and just wait until each tomato is at a good point being defrosted and the skin should just slip straight off. So this part of the process does take the longest, and like I said, you do need to be patient. However, for the video, I will skip ahead and skip to the end here where I have taken the skin off all of the tomatoes. I have the skin in the bowl here, and now my next step is to try and squeeze the excess liquid from the tomato skins. We are going to be dehydrating these tomato skins, so to make the process as quick as possible, we want to have as much liquid removed now in the process so we don't have to dehydrate them for as long in our dehydrator. As it was taking quite a while to squeeze out the juice from the tomato skins, I decided to pick up the whole bowl and just try and press out as much juice as I could first before continuing on with handfuls of the tomato skins. And as you can see here, there was a lot of liquid that came out just from giving the whole clump of tomato skins a squeeze and pushing it into the bowl. You can see how much juice came out just from doing that. After tipping the liquid out of the whole bowl, I then proceeded to continue squeezing the juice out of individual handfuls. And as you could see, a little bit more juice came out, but not as much as before. So that definitely made the whole process a lot quicker. Now that the excess liquid was squeezed out from all of the tomato skins, I got a tray from my dehydrator and I covered it with baking paper. I cut the baking paper to the size of the tray just so it wouldn't overhang too much, and then I started to lay out each tomato skin onto the trays. When you're doing this, you want to try and create one layer if possible, and don't let it overlap too much. It will make it quicker to dehydrate when it's a nice thin layer rather than lots of multiple layers of tomato skins piled up on each other. This can be a little bit fiddly, but stick with it. You are nearly finished in the process. Once the trays are in the dehydrator, you are on the home stretch and you are nearly finished. Once your trays are all in the dehydrator, make sure you pop the door on and turn on your dehydrator. Now I put the temperature on 45 degrees Celsius, so a nice low temperature, and I put that on for 10 hours. Now I could have done it a little less, but I knew that at 10 hours that was going to be plenty of time for the tomato skins to be fully dehydrated and there wasn't going to be any moisture left. Okay, so after the 10 hours, you can open your door and you can have a look at the tomato skins. They should be nice and crispy and no visible signs of moisture left. For the final step of this process, you are going to want to blend up your dehydrated tomato skins. Now, I've just got a little blender here, but you can use a food processor or whatever type of blender you have. If you don't have a blender, you could possibly even use a mortar and pestle, but this is what I've got here today. So I was placing all of the tomato skins into this little blender. And I did it in steps because they were quite chunky before they were blitzed up. So I would blitz them up and then I would add more in and blitz it up again. This little blender that I have here, it didn't fully make it into a powder. It probably turned it into more flakes rather than a powder. So if you did want to have tomato powder rather than tomato flakes, you would obviously just put it in a more powerful blender and that would do the trick. The very last thing that we need to do is to pour our tomato flakes or tomato powder into a jar. I'm using a funnel here just to make as little mess as possible, but I still did end up making a bit of a mess, but the funnel does help. Once it is all poured in, then get yourself a nice clean lid, pop it on, and you have yourself some lovely tomato flakes or some tomato powder to add into your meals when you're cooking. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you can get into your kitchen or your garden, and I'll see you next time. Bye!